Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gwen's Bookish Ramblings. I'm Gwen Campbell Mendes, and welcome to my ramblings on not Disney's 101 Dalmatians. I'm going to be talking about The 101 Dalmatians by Dodie Smith. This is an interesting little book because this started out as a collection in serial form in the Woman's Day magazine entitled The Great Dog Robbery. So it was published initially in 1956, and the actual book came out in 1967, and the edition that I have dates from 1979. So, why would I talk about this book? Because, for one thing, it's really different from the movie. Well, the plot line follows the same arc. You know, dogs have puppies, 15 puppies. Cruella de Vil steals the puppies, takes them away. The dogs have to go and rescue them before she kills them all and turns them into fabulous black and white coats. And then they have to trek back home. But it's a very, very different atmosphere in this book than what you get in the movie. For one thing, the book has a fair number of additional scenes, and for another, the climax of the movie, which is Cruella de Vil driving her car like a maniac, chasing a truck down the road, it's not in the book. Um, Cruella de Vil in this book is subtler than the one in the movie, or at least she's villainous in a different way. You see, in the movie, Cruella de Vil is fundamentally a maniac, and she's a maniac in both the live action and in the original animated version. But in this version, Cruella de Vil is, well, it's implied that she's some sort of demon or devil. It is in the name, let's be honest. But she also comes across as smooth and sophisticated and really quite different from the person that she is in the movie. Now, the art style of this book, as we see here, is very different. Um, we have here Mr. Dearly, who, unlike in the movies, is not a songwriter. Mr. Dearly in these is some form of accountant, some form of genius accountant who has managed to eliminate the national debt of Britain. We have behind him Pongo and Missus, because instead of going for Pongo and Perdita as the alliterative names in the movie, there are in fact three adult dogs that play a major role in the course of three adult Dalmatians, rather, who play a major role in the course of this book. There are a lot of dogs in this book. Um, but let us get to Perdita in a minute. Behind them we have, unlike in the movies, we have two nannies. You see, Nanny Cook, here on the right, is the woman who was the nanny to Mrs. Dearly, and on the left we have Nanny Butler, who was the nanny to Mr. Dearly. They decided that they didn't want to leave their charges, their former charges, and got training in order to be, respectively, a cook and a butler. There's a very entertaining little scene in which Nanny Butler discusses the fact that she can't be a butler if she isn't wearing trousers, and she's going to have to wear trousers in order to be a butler, and so that's what she will wear. But she will also wear a frilly apron with it because it will add a note of originality. This is the lot of them on their celebratory walk upon discovering that Mrs. is going to have puppies. Now, like the movie, there is a scene when one of the puppies nearly dies, and that Mr. Dearly does manage to revive that puppy. This is just such an adorable picture that I had to include it. I'm actually not going to include every single illustration in the book because we'd be here all day. And since I still only have a free account, I only have 15 minutes. Now, this is Perdita. Perdita and her husband. Because, you see, Perdita is a liver-spotted Dalmatian, that is, a Dalmatian with brown spots, who met up with another liver-spotted Dalmatian, and the two of them got married, and she wound up having puppies, which were effectively taken out from underneath her and sold by the farmer who owned her. So she went looking for them, and wound up ill and tired and cold and wet and alone and unconscious on a road, and was picked up by the Dearleys in order to help Mrs. take care of her puppies. So that's where the name Perdita in the movies comes from. Perdita is not, in fact, the dog that Pongo is married to. Perdita is a third dog, a single mother, alone and lonely, who they take in. I do find it interesting, of course, that the book is willing to acknowledge this concept while the movie isn't, but then again, the book does have room to be a little bit more complicated. Now, after the puppies are taken, again in the movie you do have the scene of the twilight barking, but in the books it goes into so much more detail, so much more discussion of how the twilight barking works, how the dogs manage to get information from one end of England to the other. And of course talks about the fact that the dogs do manage to track down the missing puppies, and this is a shot of Pongo and Mrs. as they give paw prints into the autograph album, or rather paw print album, of the young golden retriever, because there was a golden retriever puppy. We can see him right here next to Pongo as I move my mouse around him. And this is his father, the golden retriever who is Pongo and Mrs.'s host, from whom we discover that the dogs are going to be putting up a plaque saying Pongo and Mrs. slept here. But following that, Pongo and Mrs. are forced to travel cross country because an ad is taken out in the newspaper warning people that they need to be on the lookout for more Dalmatians than just the puppies that have been taken. Which is how we meet one of the most beautiful and poignant things I have ever read, which is the story of Sir Charles, who is living in lonely and isolated and aged splendor out in the middle of nowhere, with his old and faithful companion, a Cocker Spaniel, who helps Pongo and Mrs. after Pongo is injured by a small child who throws a rock at him, and Mrs., who is a little bit scatterbrained and not particularly bright. But he helps them, and he brings them in, and while they doze by the fireplace, they are spotted by Sir Charles, who thinks that they're ghosts of Dalmatians that he once knew. And he is so comforted by the notion that dogs would have souls that could come back as ghosts. He's comforted by the thought that he could see those dogs again, dogs that he loved, that he could see them in heaven. And it is sweet and poignant and a wonderfully affecting scene. And frankly, it makes me tear up every time I think about it. They do, of course, make their way to Suffolk, and here are the Bannon brothers on the left watching television, watching, no doubt, What's My Crime, while Pongo and Mrs. are surrounded by their puppies and, well, the whole collection of 97 puppies. Now, What's My Crime, of course, is just a hilarious concept for a TV show of two ladies and two gentlemen in evening dress guessing the crime committed by a lady or gentleman in equally faultless evening dress. And frankly, it's very, very amusing as a concept, especially because the last we hear of that particular TV show, people have managed to successfully guess that the criminal of the day managed to steal uh, 200 bath plugs from a hotel. Saul and Jasper Bannon get to talking about how they could get on the show if only they murdered the puppies in a sufficiently creative way. So, the dogs make their way out, but not before Pongo is left making the wisecrack after they've eaten everything and left only Cole in the house that the Bannon brothers can, well, let them eat Coke. Um, for those who don't know, Cole used to be known as Coke back in the day. So the dogs go on the run. They are assisted by, of course, the Colonel and his little human Tommy, who lends them a little blue cart, which is not blue in this picture because it's black and white, but it means that they can carry the puppies who are too small to make the trek from Suffolk to London on foot. They can be pulled in a little cart. On the way, they have various travails. They wind up having to spend several hours in a church while Pongo and Mrs. desperately fix the cart, and not having opposable thumbs but only their teeth. It's a feat that, frankly, I'm impressed by. It may only be fiction, I'm still impressed. They also have to go on the run from Cruella de Vil, who, on her way back from Hell House, stops to watch a bakery that's gone up in flames because she thinks it's just the most entertaining thing in the world. And, as in the movie, of course, the dogs do cover themselves in coal dust to hide. But we don't get the chase in the van. They make their way into the van, which just manages to drive them back. The scene when they return to the Dearleys is genuinely hilarious, as the Dearleys are thoroughly perplexed by this absolute onslaught of dogs. And the wonderful character of the splendid veterinary surgeon, who has no name, he is merely the splendid vet, is absolutely delighted to be called at, midnight on Christmas Eve in order to come and take care of a bunch of dogs. And in the end, we get our beautiful, adorable, happy ending of Mr. and Mrs. Dearly at Hell House, which they have purchased and refurbished, surrounded by dogs, with the nannies standing in the doorway of Hell House. This is a fun book. It's whimsical and silly and goofy and filled with little one-liners, like that Pongo loved his Shakespeare. He had devoured an old leather-bound edition of Shakespeare. I do enjoy this book very, very much, and I would hope that other people will enjoy its whimsy that is so different and distinct from Disney, and will just appreciate it on its own, and not as some sort of a precursor to the actual movie, but as a work of fiction in its own right. And I hope that you've all enjoyed my rambling, my spoilers. This is an all spoiler zone. And I hope to see you next time. Thanks for coming, thanks for listening, and if anybody comments, thanks for commenting.